Hello everyone. So I've just finished painting up my first box of Perry plastic Zulus. As you may know if you've seen previous videos, I've now painted up quite a few Warlord plastics, having switched to plastic from metal to complete my Zulu army. And what a pity that Perry Plastics came out just as I was nearing the end of my project, because these are far and away the plastic Zulus that I am, or even the Zulus to be honest, that I am most happy with. So I wanted to go through them, show them to you in a little bit more detail, and explain why I like them so much. I won't go into the advantages of metal and plastic again. Simply to say that when you're accruing a large number of figures, gets very expensive to purchase them all in metal, and they're really heavy to carry around. So the plastic's an ideal solution for that. So I was quite happy to go along with the Warlord range, but as you may remember, I do have a few reservations about Warlord, and all my issues, it's almost spooky, all the issues I had with them, Perry seemed to have addressed in this set. So I just want to read out from the back of the Perry box. I might throw up an image of that from time to time so that you can see what I'm talking about, but I just want to read from the back of the box how Perry described their kit. This box allows you to field 34 hard plastic 28mm multi-pose Zulu warriors with an additional 4 casualties, all are dressed for campaign, i.e. minimal ceremonial regalia, which additionally makes them quicker to paint. They can be assembled as either married or unmarried regiments, all armed with spear/knobkerrie, or with up to 10 carrying firearms. Although they are primarily designed for the Anglo-Zulu War of 1879, they can be used for the greater part of the 19th century, fighting neighbouring tribes as well as their own civil wars and the Boers. Right, well, that is everything. They've virtually taken the words out of my mouth for my intent when I paint up Zulus. I don't like, one aspect of the Warlord Zulus I don't like is that they have far too much regalia on them. They're very heavily adorned with feathers and cowtails and so on, far more than I'm sure the Zulus took into battle with them. They were feathers in particular were very expensive, highly prized objects, denoting rank and denoting bravery in battle and so on. And it's rather like, you know, expecting a soldier of the modern era to go into battle dressed in all his battle honours and medals and so on, and in his mess kit or whatever, rather than campaign gear. Warlord do 2 separate boxes. They do a box for married and a box for unmarried. With the Perry, you have an absolute, I mean, I won't show you, but I've still got so much left on the sprues, in the way of heads and so on. So you can either put the heads on that have the head ring on them that denotes that the warrior is married, or you can put them on with or just bare heads, or some of them there are some feathers in there, but not that many. So you can probably see here, a couple in the front rank here that I've given feathers to, and I've got leopard skin headbands and so on. There's another one just there. So you have got that option of giving them feathers, but you can have them completely plain and unadorned. There are no cowtails on the arms whatsoever, although there are quite a few on the calves. But that has a huge bearing on how you can put the pieces of the figure together. Because let me show you. These are some warlord Zulus here. So as you can see, a couple of them here have cowtails on their arm. Now, if you do that, if you choose to put a cowtail, there are only enough shields for there aren't a surplus of shields. So if the shield arm has a cowtail on it, you're obliged to find a weapon arm, right arm, that also matches with a cowtail, and that limits your choice in how you can put these figures together. Also, the arms on the warlord figures are joined where that cowtail is, or in the case if there isn't a cowtail, because the join is sort of just above the elbow, they have to give all the figures this really sort of unusual, sort of weird, heavy sort of wide band around their arms. So I chose to paint those as brass, or copper rather. But there isn't that issue with these Parry figures. Their arms all join at the shoulder, and so it gives you a lot more flexibility in pairing off right and left arms, as well as the fact that that band is really awkward. It doesn't continue all the way around the arm. It's probably going to be a little bit difficult to show you on these, but it narrows down. I don't know whether you might be able to see just there. It's a lot thinner at the front of that figure's arm than it is at the back. So it doesn't look right, and the Parry figures look much more, because they're so much more plainly adorned, they look far more reasonable. There isn't that awkward band around the arm. For the practicality, I'm going to play Black Powder with these, and it's another oddity that Warlord Games market Black Powder rules, and they market their Zulus to be effectively to be played with Black Powder. So that means you're kind of basing the figures up on a 40mm square base, so 4 figures per base. And although the torsos do vary slightly, but not completely, from their unmarried regiment box to their married regiment box, I think you can see there is a crossover. The 2 running figures at the front of each base are the same. And in each box there are only 4 poses, which means unless you're going to duplicate the pose on the base, you're obliged to put one of each pose on each base. So you're very limited. You begin to get that effect that each base looks the same, even if you move the figures round in their relative positions. There's too much repetition of the poses, whereas in the Parry box, I think I counted at least 7 different poses. So that gives you a lot more flexibility. I've never understood why Warlord throw in a free Empress figure with their range either, because with their boxes either. You get a different one for the married and the unmarried. But so it's a free Empress figure. It's an Induna. In the Black Powder rules, you don't need an Induna for every 32 figures. So you just end up with this massive excess of Induna figures. What you do with the Parry figures is you make your decision about whether you're going to have a married or an unmarried regiment. But then you have the option, because there are more than 32 figures in the box. You have an option of selecting certain of the figures and giving them a feathered head and basing them individually. I haven't done that here, but you could find, a nicely feathered head to make the figure stand out, and find one of the more one of the less dynamic poses, say a figure standing and then pointing with his spear or something like that. Turn him into an Induna figure, and you're still going to have at least 32 figures to make up 8 bases to make up a unit or a regiment of Zulus. What I've actually done, as you see, is put some feathered, just to break it up a little bit. Put some feathers on some of the figures, and I've also only based up the 2 obviously long dead Zulus on individual bases to use as casualty markers, but the other 2, the ones that have just been struck by a bullet or something, I've actually put onto bases. So I've ended up with 36 figures, allowing me to have 9 bases. So I've kind of got an extra base out of it that way, and that all suits me fine. On this business of muskets, I really like the way that Perry allow you to give the figures muskets if you want, but don't force you down that line. I don't want to put muskets or too many muskets on my figures, precisely for the reason that Perry give, that if you have them in less kind of period specific poses and weaponry and such, gives you that option of playing Zulu armies against one another or playing them in earlier periods, that kind of thing, rather than having Martini Henry rifles, which does limit you a little bit in them fighting Boers in earlier wars and so on. It allows you much more flexibility. Going back to the Warlord and that business with the arms, if you don't match up the cowtails on the arms and the bands on the arms and so on too assiduously, you're kind of obliged, and you don't want to give them muskets, you're obliged to give them knobkerries, so you end up with lots of the figures carrying knobkerries and so on. Whereas here, I could have armed all of these figures with throwing spears or assegais and not had a problem. As I say, in the box there's a massive amount that I haven't used, but so again I was given the freedom to just break it up a little bit and give a couple knobkerries. So there's one there with a knobkerrie, and there's another one somewhere. I can't see him immediately, but he's in there somewhere. So that is all good as well. There are a few more pieces to put together in with the Perrys, but again that does give you a little bit more flexibility, and there wasn't a problem with that. But some of the arms are lacking a hand, and then the hand is attached to the shield, whereas some of the arms have a left arm attached to the left hand, and then that kind of leads you down a certain route. Let me see. That one there, that wounded guy. The arm came with a. So I had his shield kind of dropped to the ground, because you get 4 shields that have a shaft going all the way down, whereas all the other shields are either attached to the hand or they have a kind of gap in them. So I think that's right. So you can attach the figure. It was a while ago since I stuck these together, so I think that's correct. I might be wrong in that. So all in all, I think these Perry figures are fantastic. Really, really useful. And as I say, what a shame it's close to the end of my. I've now got 400 figures. I've got an excess, and I actually made a mistake because I required. I think I needed 6 more of one particular regiment and 2 more of another. They were both married regiments, but they had different coloured shields, and I've painted all these up with the same coloured shields, so it's given me a reason to purchase another box of Perry's and put them together, and then I'll have well over the 400, and I'll paint some of those up as married with red shields with some white patches on them, and I might paint some of them up as unmarried with darker black shields and so on without the head rings, and play around with them that way. So yeah, I would highly recommend Perry. The only let's make a slight criticism of them, which is a criticism I have with most Zulu figures that I buy, and that is that there are very few manufacturers around who, to my mind, get the shields right. The closest to accuracy that I've ever found are the Empress figures. So let me show you. These are metal Empress figures, and I don't know how well this will show up on camera, but on all Zulu shields you have this sort of stripe, these rows of bars going down the shield, and what they are is the hide of the shield has been split, and then another strip of hide, usually of a different colour to provide contrast, has been woven in and out of those slits. Now with the Empress they've got it right. I'll put up a picture of, you can see this quite clearly on a Zulu shield that's in the National Army Museum in Chelsea, so I'll put that up so you can see. But Empress have got it right, that because it's drawn quite tightly to attach the main area of hide to the shaft at the back, you don't get them protruding. You get them there's this sort of undulating effect, but they're actually recessed, whereas just about every other range that you buy has them as kind of raised above the shield surface, and not only that, but far too narrow. There's an almost equal kind of distance of the gap between the different coloured hide and the hide itself. As I say, that should be a bit more obvious on the image that I'll put up. And again, Empress haven't got that right. I mean, the worst ones of all are Redoubt. Haven't got one of those out to show you, but it looks like there's a washboard on the front of the shield. There are such thin separations, and they're raised as well, and it looks just like something in old-fashioned washboard that you'd scrub your shirt collars on. And Empress haven't quite got that right. It does make it slightly easier to paint, but it's not accurate. And I think that's everything I wanted to say about these. As I say, can highly recommend them, and I'm now looking forward to painting up my next set. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Bye for now.